Good day, viewers. Welcome to a fresh edition of 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television with me, Manir Dan Ali. Our guest today is a senior advocate of Nigeria, that is a senior lawyer in the profession, who is also the president of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm talking about Mr. Emeka Obegolu, who is here to share some insights regarding his presidency and the Abuja Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Obegolu, you've been on the job for less than a year. I remember you got in about December. So I don't know what you will say you found to be the most important thing that needed your attention in terms of promoting business, that is commerce and industry, in the Federal Capital Territory.
Thank you very much. I want to first thank you for inviting me to your program. When we came in December 2023, we of course inherited a going concern. The Abuja Chamber of Commerce, as you know, is the voice of the organized private sector in the Federal Capital Territory. What we did first before the inauguration was to call attention of the administration of FCT to the lack of infrastructure within the industrial district of FCT, the industrial district of FCT.
Are you talking about Idu?
Idu Industrial District.
Industrial
yes.
Estate,
and
yes.
We made that call, and we felt that with all the ongoing infrastructural work going on in FCT, the major base of employment of business in FCT should be an attention given to Idu Industrial District. And unfortunately, up till now, the administration has not deemed it fit to pay attention to the economic base of the Federal Capital Territory. We are still making that call. But on the whole, the business community in the FCT, they are thriving in spite of the economic conditions that we all know and is affecting businesses in FCT. But it's not all bad news.
What is the cheery good news? Because we all need something to cheer us up.
From FCT is the improved security situation. I could recall that sometime last year, kidnappers almost took a free rein in FCT. But when the minister, when the new CP was appointed, who is now an AIG,
the Commissioner of Police.
The Commissioner of Police, the security situation improved, and it has continued to improve. We all witness it. We've all witnessed again the improvements to the infrastructure being led by the Minister of FCT, for which we are grateful. For the business sector, we feel that a lot more could be done to bring in the businesses in the ideas and thought process. Just this week, on Monday, we held the FCT Investment Summit.
Yes, I saw that one organized by the Federal Capital Territory Administration.
We have our reservations, because when you're talking about investment summit without the private sector, it's like one hand clapping. One hand cannot clap.
So was it just government officials talking to themselves?
Talking to themselves, and we'll take exception to an arrangement where an investment summit can be held in a city without the organized private sector being part of it.
They didn't invite you, or you shunned it?
We wrote to the organizers and said we'll plan to collaborate with you to bring an all-inclusive investment summit. But that letter has not been replied to as we speak. So the event went on, we saw the live broadcast, we are happy, but we are tired of talk shows. We want to see statistics to show that investments are either coming in or going out. As of today, the statistics does not support improved investment in FCT. The investment climate is there, but we need the private sectors to work with government to drive investments. There's a lot we can offer as FCT. There's a lot going for FCT. And again, sometime this week, I received an audience, an agency working with the USAID. They came to FCT to seek our input into the USAID program for agricultural improvement in states surrounding FCT. And my first question to them was, in all this, how is FCT not part of your focal areas?
And what was their response?
And the response was that, of course, they are funded by the USAID. So they can only be given areas that USAID consider the food baskets of the country. And I said to them that there is no way Nasarawa can be a food basket, Niger is a food basket, and the state in between, FCT, is not a food basket.
Because there are also lots of farming activities, lots of agricultural activity, processing and what have you within the FCT.
The difference is that the governors of these areas deliberately and intentionally promote agriculture within their respective states. We have not done much to promote agriculture within FCT. So
maybe this impression that Abuja is just where they share the federal money, so it's just more like civil servants, public servants, and people who want to make a quick buck.
Now, the impression, like you rightly observed, is that Abuja is bureaucracy, that Lagos is the commercial capital of Nigeria. And that is my major mission as a Chamber of Commerce, to reverse that impression, because a lot of businesses are going on in FCT. If you go to Idu Industrial District, you will be surprised the number of industries that are existing there.
Which one surprised you in the Idu Industrial Estate, for example?
What shocked me was the failure of infrastructure. There are no roads.
Now, what about the industries that are there? Because we said if one goes there, you will be surprised. So which one was it that surprised you that it is there and you don't know or people don't know?
Furniture, there are furniture companies. There are aluminium companies. There are so many companies. You know, I was going to visit a company who is a member, and I found that the road to that company is inaccessible. If I didn't have a four-wheel drive, I couldn't access the gates of that company. And on that road, you will see several businesses lacking in government support. But again, most of those businesses do not have power. So we need to decide for ourselves, if FCT wants to be an industrial city, having an industrial layout, we must, as an administration, as a country, as FCT administration, pay attention to Idu Industrial District.
You have generally been talking about the big businesses. What about the small, medium ones? Because what you hear them talking about is there is excessive taxation. There is a lot of, so many agencies coming. I remember there was a particular one who does bread, it's a bakery. And she couldn't even put up her signboard because she said like 5 different agencies came to her within a week. That is what forced her to take away this signboard. Are you concerned about those other businesses that may be below the radar for you?
No, they are not below the radar. If you read my inaugural speech, you will see that we spoke about double taxation. It comes in different forms. There are some of them that should be addressed, but the tax, not tax most times, they are all revenue officers from different agencies of government. What we have seen, and this is not limited to FCT, is that every agency of government wants to be a revenue generating agency. But that shouldn't be so. And I'll give you an example. If you go to Usetu, Adetogunmademola Crescent, which is almost now a commercial district.
Yes, it used to be residential, but it's now taken over by commerce.
Now see what is happening there in Adetogunmademola. The authorities, knowing fully well that this area has now been fully commercialized, and they were aware, instead of redesigning Adetogunmademola to make it, converting it to commercial, they insist on collecting penalties for commercial use in the residential area every year. So for those businesses along the street, they pay penalty to FCT administration every year for using it as commercial.
And there is also, I hear, even charge for the number of cars you parked within your premises, because one businessman was complaining that you have this ridiculous charge, and it's not in small amount, it's in hundreds of thousands for parking vehicles within your premises.
Well, what I can say is that yes, government needs money to run for effective administration of government, but beyond that, government must apply a human face to the reality of the situation. There is every need for the FCT administration to harmonize taxation. If you drive on the road, you will see all sorts of licensed private contractors, licensed to Abuja Municipal Area Council, packing and collecting money from commercial drivers, from private cars. All sorts of agencies are on the road. VIO is not a revenue generating organization.
But the court has recently pronounced on VIOs.
Yes.
Though they have appealed.
Before now, they were collecting revenue. Road safety shouldn't be a revenue generating organization. Penalty is for deterrence, not because you want to earn money. So for instance, if I'm not wearing a seatbelt and you see you have a discretion as an officer to penalize me or advise me, in most countries, they have decriminalized petty offenses. So when you commit a petty offense, you're advised and you're let go, unless you have a criminal track record. So what am I saying? As FCT, most agencies are more interested in revenue generation.
Yes, and one of the ones that you've been mentioning is to do with either when you drive a Hilux pickup,
Yes.
any pickup, or a Sienna bus, which by some designation is now commercial, even if you are using it to drive children to school and what have you.
Exactly.
And then I saw that there are up to 40 different papers that you have to get just to drive any of those cars. Are you talking to the government like this is senseless?
No, you see that one is across the states. If you drive from here to Anambra or to Sokoto or to Ibadan, you meet each local government, by the nature of their laws, have power to make subsidiary legislation over some of these things. But then when we wrote to Algon, and we advised Algon that you, Association of Local Governments, why can't you harmonize these to avoid a driver who is going from Abuja to Ibadan or to Sokoto having to subject yourself to 25, 30 different local government authorities.
And what about the Joint Tax Board? I thought it was supposed to be doing exactly that. You have one paper that is valid throughout the country, and then they do the division of who gets what.
We have an interesting federalism. When it favors local governments, they assert their independence and autonomy. But when they need support from federal government, they run to federal government for money. That is the essence of the Joint Tax Board. But today, what we have in practice is everybody trying to raise money because government encourages agencies to retain part of their internally generated revenue. So that is why they are trying to outdo each other to raise money. The first thing is for government to say, for instance, in FCT, no agency will retain any money generated, whether internally or externally.
You think that will solve the problem?
It will solve the problem. And then stop giving them mandates to generate money. If you give a banker a mandate that before the end of the month you must bring in 1 billion naira, they will do anything, including compromising their moral ethics, to bring in 1 billion naira. It is the same thing with government agencies.
We've come to a juncture where we should probably go on a short break and resume the conversation thereafter. Welcome back. It is 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Mr. Emeka Obegolu, the president of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You are making the point about all these different taxations, charges, and multiplicity of agencies. Do you reckon that the way they are now is good for business?
Well, the way they are now, they all have their purpose, they all have their mandate. If they focus on their mandate, of course it will be good for business. But when they go outside their mandate and make revenue generation a mandate, then it becomes bad for business. The agencies are not bad on their own. It is the persons who are administering the agencies that may make it good or make it bad.
So how is the ease of doing business? Because we often hear about it that there is a one-stop shop where you can register everything. That's the theory. But
Yes.
in practice, we found that may not exactly be the same. What's been your experience hearing from businesses here in Abuja?
Yeah, we're part of a program led by the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Office. It was warehoused within the Abuja Enterprise Agency. In that program, we had all the agencies responsible for company registration and taxation and even expatriate quota domiciled within the Abuja Enterprise Agency. It went well, but after the last administration, we have written to the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Office within the presidency to revive that program. But beyond that, ease of doing business goes beyond the documentation of companies.
Which is exactly my question. How easy is it to do business in Abuja or in Nigeria generally?
The simple answer is that it's not easy. And you know the reason, I know the reason. But I like to look at...
Can you state them for the benefit of our audience?
Today, in my office, my power bill is over 400,000 naira a month. Today in my office, I'm using my office as an example, the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Okay, the power bill is my personal office, but in the Chamber of Commerce, our power bill is over 1 million, sometimes 2 million naira a month. The average staff, if you want to be sincere to yourself, if you pay your staff 200,000 naira a month, which you cannot even afford to pay, it cannot run a month for that staff. So the challenges faced by businesses every day are what you have clearly identified, from taxation to government policies that do not support businesses. We are now facing dollar today is about 1,007 to naira to a dollar. So I have members who have said to us that we used to import this X amount of containers every quarter or every month. We can no longer import 50% of what we used to import. Businesses are closing down. The reality is dire. And
what about the collapse of purchasing power? Because most people cannot afford many things that they used to buy.
If you go to most departmental stores, you will see it for yourself that even the departmental stores cannot even restock. They cannot restock what they have sold, because if you sell for a certain amount, you cannot even buy what you have sold. So the reality is facing us, and the CBN needs to find a way to inject money into the system.
But the World Bank is saying that this is the best therapy for Nigeria. Just a few days ago, we saw their representative say, urging President Tinubu to keep steady and continue ahead.
Well, I would like to know if there's any country in Africa that has followed World Bank advice and come out of their challenges.
Is there one in the world?
I don't know. I've not seen. So when I hear World Bank have said this, World Bank took us through, when we did SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, it was World Bank advised. We saw where it led us to. So we must begin to look for domestic solutions to our problems.
As a head of a business organization, what will you say is the advantage of what we've just done, that is jacked up the price of fuel several hundred times, and then electricity plus forex, the value of our currency? What economic advantage can it confer to a country like Nigeria?
For a country that is not exporting any substantial thing apart from our natural resources, crude oil and petroleum products, you cannot afford to float your national currency. What this administration did was to float our currency that's why it has taken the dive it took. And every other thing you've seen, including the fuel price increase, arose from the floating of the naira.
So what's the advantage?
No country that does not have exports floats their currency. Most countries defend their currency. Even China still defend their currency. I don't know whether you have seen, I've not seen any advantage. People are under severe pressure to exist in Nigeria. Maybe World Bank is seeing what we are not seeing.
And what could that be?
I wouldn't know. If it may be, I'm not an economist.
Is it in what the economists say in the long term? So in the long term, some say we are all dead. But in the long term, before we all die, do we envisage that these reforms will take us to the land of milk and honey?
You know, we are living with hope. We can only hope that these reforms will bring us out of the doldrum. I'm not an economist, but I want to work with what I see. The average Nigerian cannot, and this is over 80% of Nigerians, their income cannot last them 2 weeks.
And workers cannot even go to the office.
Workers cannot go to the office. Some state governments are devising work from home policy. They're asking workers to come 3 times a week, but how does it work? So there must be some stopgap measures. While we're waiting for the long-term solution, the government has to devise practical and workable stopgap measures to give the people some safety nets, social safety nets.
Is it the palliatives or is it beyond palliatives? Because we've been talking about palliatives, and palliatives usually are just to ease the pain. They don't solve the problem.
Well, it's still palliatives, but palliatives that can work. The palliatives that we have designed obviously did not work. You can see that most ministers that attempted palliatives ended up with EFCC because of the corruption-laden administration of the palliatives. So we must find a way.
But there's
and
also
cash transfer is not going to work. I'm hearing 20 trillion naira cash transfer, 20 billion naira cash transfer. Do you have the statistics? How many Nigerians have bank accounts?
But will that not inject money into the economy and help push up purchasing power?
Domestic debt is a big issue. Companies are folding because government is owing them. Can we pay domestic debts and insist on some level of employment and wage increase for those who are paying? These are issues that can be put on the table and bring stakeholders to sit down and look at it. In FCT, for instance, there are 6 area councils. If you want to create a social safety net, you must bring stakeholders from these 6 area councils, from the businesses, from the religious bodies, from the traditional institutions. Let's come together and decide. No man knows it all. Nobody can stay in Washington and tell us what to work in my village in Obeledu, Anambra State. You have to bring the stakeholders and hear them out and fashion a solution that can address their needs.
Is it a surprise that even under a military government of Ibrahim Babangida that introduced SAP, there was a big debate before the government made its decision? How come under a democracy no such debate is happening, even after most people are saying, look, the path we are going leads nowhere?
No, the debate is ongoing. That's why we have the National Assembly, who are our representatives. If they fail to debate, that's the failure on their part. Democracy envisages that there is a parliament that will debate policies and on behalf of the citizens.
But this issue wasn't tabled before the National Assembly.
And then what did the National Assembly do?
Well, they've been calling as recent as maybe a day or so ago. I saw the House of Representatives calling on the government to back down and remove, take a step back on the fuel subsidy.
Since May 29, 2023, the president in his inaugural speech said, I will withdraw fuel subsidy. The National Assembly was inaugurated in June 2023. It took them a year and months to see what people saw at that time and were shouting that this is not good for the economy. They were branded opposition politicians. So after a year and months, people have died. People have lost families. People couldn't pay medical bills. You now wake up and want to reverse the clock. Obviously, if you were the president, you would not take them serious. The point is, at the point of every policy, the parliament ought to call for a public hearing. The executive cannot call for public hearing. It is the parliament.
But what could they have done? Because the president has made his pronouncement, so whatever they will do is after the event.
No, they can still call for public hearing and pass a resolution. Do your own. Do your own. If they have done their own, then we can know where the blame lies.
Where do you hope to see businesses, both the commerce and the industry in Abuja, maybe before the end of your own tenure? I know it's all this pie in the sky.
We have Abuja Chamber of Commerce. We have 4 centers, and I'll tell you what the centers do and how we hope that the centers will impact on businesses in FCT. We have the Dispute Resolution Center, which has now been adopted by NASIMA as a national center for commercial dispute resolution. Now, that center came about from a survey we conducted in FCT, and it showed us that small and medium businesses settle their disputes at police and security agencies. And you know what it does for them? They will never revert back to their pre-dispute relationships. So we'll set up an effective and efficient dispute resolution center for businesses in FCT. And because of the success recorded by the center, the NASIMA, which is National Chamber, had to adopt the center as a center for commercial dispute resolution. So what it has done is to provide for businesses in FCT an effective way for dispute resolution.
Yeah, you said there are 3. You mentioned one.
There are 4 of them.
4. Yes. What are the 3?
The second is the Policy and Advocacy Center, which is the advocacy arm of the FCT. And what we do is to profile alternative policies for government or commend where we agree the policies of government. So it serves as the voice of the organized private sector to advocate, and it was on that platform that we advocated for focus on the Idu Industrial District.
Okay. What are the 2 others, because time is running out?
The best center is the Business, Entrepreneurship, Skills and Technology Center, BEST Center, that was developed to train staff for businesses, because we realized from our interaction that businesses require more skills than universities teach. So we are doing specialized trainings to meet the knowledge gap and the resource gap for businesses. The last is the Abuja Trade Center, which is the center that organizes trade fairs, exhibitions, trade missions, and all that.
Very briefly, where does a problem like you want NAFDAC registration, it takes you 2 years or more to get it, and you have to greet so many farms. Does your center, does the chamber come into that to make it easy for people?
Yeah, where we have our members come to us, and of course, in several locations, our members have come to us that these issues arise. We write to relevant agencies, not only NAFDAC, and by the time you interrogate the issue, you find that they also have their own internal problems. There are some tests that cannot be conducted in Abuja. Samples has to be taken to outside Abuja to go and conduct to certify a product fit for consumption. So there are also challenges along those lines. But the biggest room in life is the room for improvements. And we say to them that after all has been said and done, let more be done than said.
Very good point to end this interesting conversation. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Viewers, that's the end of this edition of 30 Minutes. Keep a date with us.